I'd like to call to order this November 4th, 2020, regular meeting of the Board of Education. Item 2, we need to select a treasurer pro tempore in the absence of our treasurer. Is there any board member who'd like to volunteer to serve in that capacity this evening?
I'll do it.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Gomez.
you, Mr. Gomez. Thank you.
You gotta roll call. You have to call the roll before we vote for me.
It is recommended the Board of Education elect a treasurer pro tempore to serve in place of the treasurer for the regular Board of Education meeting to be held on Wednesday, October 21st, 2020.
So moved. I'll second.
Been moved and seconded.
Shouldn't it be November 4th? November 4th,
November 4th.
the date?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading right off here,
Yes,
and I shouldn't have. I'm sorry, it is November 4th.
I was correct.
Only feels like a time warp. Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion then, because Mr. Gomez has volunteered? So we'll recommend Mr. Gomez serve this evening as our treasurer pro tempore. Roll call, Mr. Gomez?
Mr. Gomez, aye. Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mrs. Moffett,
Aye.
Dr. Hall. Aye.
Thank you. Motion to approve the agenda. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the agenda of the November 4th, 2020 regular Board of Education meeting. Action by the Board of Education in adoption of a consent agenda means that all items are adopted by one singular motion unless a member of the Board of Education, treasurer, superintendent requests that any such item be removed from the consent agenda and voted upon separately.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Gomez, please.
Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mrs. Moffett,
Aye.
Dr. Hall. Aye. Mr. Gomez, aye.
Item C, opening ceremony. Welcome our vision, Cuyahoga Falls City Schools, the hub of our community, committed to a culture of caring. We innovate, we create, we personalize education for all. Our mission, every student, every day, every opportunity. A special welcome to our top Tigers and all the family and friends that are here to support them. Informational items. This meeting is a meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not a public community meeting, although there are opportunities for public participation. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic found on the meeting agenda, the individual must complete a registration form found inside the attendance notebook and present it to the treasurer. Following the introduction of the topic by the board president, followed by board discussion, the individual will be recognized. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic not found on the meeting agenda, she or he must notify the superintendent and or board president of the topic no later than 7 calendar days in advance of the meeting. The comments of these individuals will be read during the board business portion of the agenda. In both cases, comments will include the name and address of the individual and be limited to 3 minutes. In addition, in public session, the board will not hear complaints about school personnel nor any individual connected with the school system. An unabridged board agenda for this meeting can be found on your electronic device at the address www.boarddocs.com/oh/cfalls/board.nsf. And for your convenience, hard copies of the board agenda may be found on the library desk. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education is on November 18th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. in the Cuyahoga Falls High School Library, 2300 4th Street. And now for our Pledge of Allegiance, followed by positive reflections. Dr. Alex Hall.
Please stand as you're able. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is my first time offering the positive reflection since joining this board, and I would very much like to read the entire preamble to a bill for the more general diffusion of knowledge, which was presented by its author, Thomas Jefferson, in the House of Delegates in 1778 and 1780, but not passed until 1796 after having been revised several times to become the act to establish public schools. Instead, I will read a mercifully short excerpt. Whence it becomes expedient for promoting the public happiness that those persons whom nature hath endowed with genius and virtue should be rendered by liberal education worthy to receive and able to guard the sacred deposit of the rights and liberties of their fellow citizens, and that they should be called to that charge without regard to wealth, birth, or other accidental condition or circumstance. It is better that such should be sought for and educated at the common expense of all, than that the happiness of all should be confided to the weak or wicked.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. We're ready for item D, presentations. Dr. Nichols?
Thank you, President Schofield, members of the board, audience. It is our pleasure first to recognize a few of our staff members. The first staff recognition, I would ask Joe Bugatti, the Director of Business and Operations, to come join me. There you go.
Paula, can I take it, Paula, to please come up?
Paula Arriaga, bus driver for Cuyahoga City Schools.
I don't know if anybody has had a chance to see or notice in the Akron Beacon Journal, I think it was last week, they came out and did a nice story about Paula and had it in there, and it was a difference maker. So she is certainly a difference maker in our school district. And I'd like to read something. She was nominated by her direct supervisor, Marjorie Johnson. I'd like to just take a short minute to read what she has to say. Paula Arriaga is a difference maker. Paula has been driving a school bus for over 25 years. Paula is our most senior driver here at the Cuyahoga Falls City School District. She has a love for children and truly loves her job. Not only has Paula driven for a very long time, but she is a role model for other drivers as well in the district. Paula is also an OBI, which stands for an on-board instructor. She teaches new drivers how to drive the school bus safely. She participates in Safety Town for our kindergarten students every year. Paula takes one of our buses to Touch a Truck every year as well. This gives our young ones and anyone else who wants to a chance to walk through a school bus and explore. It is also a great time for Paula to recruit moms for new bus drivers. She does a good job at that as well. Paula typically drives our children with special needs. She has a soft spot for all of them. If a child misses the bus or for whatever reason didn't make it to the bus stop, she is the first to volunteer to go back. Paula heads up our school bus safety week every year. Due to COVID this year, she actually helped create a video so that teachers could do school bus safely remotely for the students who are going to be returning to class in November. What Marjorie wrote, it was very, very nice. I'd like to just add a little bit here because we do give Marjorie a vacation once in a while. So then that means I'm in charge of bus transportation. And Paul is always the first to say, we got this. Don't worry about it. Handle the operations, food service, whatever your normal day is, we've got this. She's always the first to volunteer for everybody, no matter what's going on in the district. She is always there for all of us. So from the bottom of my heart, I would like to say thank you for all you do for the district, for all you do for all of our kids, and we are certainly proud and honored to have you as an employee.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Before you take your seat, I'd like to award you with a couple of things. First is a Black Tiger Pride pin,
Thank you, sir.
and second is a certificate of commendation, and I'll read what the certificate has to say. This certificate is presented to Paula Arriaga in recognition of your being selected as one of Akron Beacon Journal's Make the Grade Difference Makers. Your dedication and commitment to our students, student bus riders, your colleagues, and our Black Tiger family for more than 25 years is greatly appreciated. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols. I appreciate that.
I would like to add that Paula's my son's favorite bus driver of all time, all the athletic events that he's ever gone to, and then riding the school bus. My son is now at University of Akron. So, our second staff recognition, I would like to invite our Director of Human Resources to the podium, Ms. Sally McClure.
Good evening, everybody. So something that we have started this year that is a little bit of a change from what we've done in the past is we award a star staff member at the end of the year. And we award 4 of those at the end of every year. And we decided we wanted to do that more frequently in conjunction with our top Tigers. So we are awarding a star staff member every board meeting. And these staff members are nominated by their colleagues. Some of them anonymously, some of them not anonymously. This evening, we are recognizing David Saveges. David, you want to come on up? David is also from our transportation department, is a bus monitor, and I'd like to introduce Marjorie Johnson as our transportation supervisor, and she's going to read the nomination form, which was from some of our teachers in one of our buildings. Marjorie?
Good evening. I was so excited that they started honoring people more often because we have a great bunch of bus drivers and monitors, and they do just such really caring things every day. So I was very excited that they started doing this more often. And I get phone calls all the time from parents and from different people throughout the district, teachers, aides, principals, telling me what nice things that our people do. Dave is a monitor, and he is on one of our special needs buses, and he's been with our district for over 5 years. And Dave is awesome with the children. So he was nominated, and I got the phone call a couple of weeks back. And I don't know these people, but from Lincoln Elementary, Ashley Longbill and Katie Laxo, saying how special he was and the time that he took for one of our young students who, when things aren't the same way every day, he gets a little out of sorts. So Dave wanted to know what he could do to help this young gentleman. And they gave him some things to do, and Dave was quite interested, and he said it's worked out quite well. So he's our monitor on bus 22, and they say that he went above and beyond, asking questions and looking for information about how he could help the student that was having some difficulty sometimes on the bus. He was receptive to the information that we were able to provide about the student and how to make their experience better when traveling to and from school. We are so thankful to have caring bus personnel to help with our friends who have no verbal skills and have difficulty with changes in their routines. Dave provides them with an awesome start to their day. Great work. So we thank you, Dave.
Come on over here. On behalf of the district, I also can also give you a Black Tiger Pride pin and a certificate that says, in recognition of your outstanding contribution to the achievement of Cuyahoga Falls City School District students and the support of Cuyahoga Falls City School District staff members. But don't go away. So you also are, since you are a star in our eyes, this is our star award that you can display proudly on your bus or wherever you'd like. So I'm going to put it back in the box and take it with you. Thank you so much for all you do. We appreciate it.
Dave, you also get a flower.
Oh, a flower.
Would you give him one of those
Sure,
flowers?
flower.
And if you'd be so kind as to take one to Paula
I will.
as well.
There you go.
She also
Thank you
gets a
so
flower
much.
this evening.
Thank you.
All
Do you
right.
need help with these?
Thank you so much. Yes, outstanding. Thank you. We are blessed with, well, you already know, we're blessed with an amazing faculty and staff here in Cuyahoga Falls. And it's our privilege and honor to be able to recognize them here at the board meetings, just like it's our privilege and honor to recognize our outstanding students. Top Tigers is a Board of Education award, and we've had to do it a little differently this year, separating the elementary and secondary. So we appreciate you being here with us this evening. The Top Tiger Award is sponsored by the Cuyahoga Falls City Schools Foundation and Alumni Association. Parents, raise your hand if you're an alum. Okay, put your hand down if you're a member of the Alumni Association. So you all are members of the Alumni Association. That's good. That's good. If you're not, I'm going to have the director, Mr. Gary Metcalf, come to the podium and talk you into it. Gary, could you please join us?
Thank you. Congratulations to all the Top Tigers tonight. I've been doing this for like 5 or 6 years, and this is one of the highlights of what I do with the Cuyahoga Falls Schools Foundation. Thank you to a couple of our sponsors, Donato's Pizza. You're going to get a coupon for a personal pan pizza and a flower tonight from Dietz's Florist. Top Tigers in May, cross our fingers. You will march in the Memorial Day Parade. Moms and dads, grandpas can march also. Hear that, Grandpa? And great grandpas. We get them out.
Probably grandmas and great grandmas too.
That's right. And you'll get a beautiful T-shirt to wear. So cross our fingers. We also help sponsor the new entrance to Clifford Stadium, our football field, Tiger Trail, and you can still purchase a brick. We help with class reunions, sponsor all class reunions. We honor distinguished alumni. You go out here to the left in the showcase, you'll see a nice plaque with the list of all the distinguished alumni. We provide scholarships to graduating seniors. Last year, we had 75 scholarships worth over $180,000. And we could not do it without our alumni. We also gave away 6 teacher grants. So that money also went back into the classroom to help your students. We have a brand new website. Check it out. It's the initials to our association, CFSFAA, Cuyahoga Falls Schools Foundation.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome.
So typically, the protocols would include you coming and shaking hands with the board members, first getting a bag, and then all kinds of goodies as you come down. The bags are loaded with the goodies. Mr. Metcalf identified a couple of those things, being Donato's and being Dietz's Florist. We also have a bracelet, Black Tiger Pride bracelet for you. We have a pin that we gave out. We also have a certificate to Young's screen printing for you as well. And ultimately, you'll get a certificate. And then I'm reading a nomination form, and that nomination form is also in the bag for your keep. Okay? So those are all the goodies that are in a bag. And so the protocols have changed a little bit, and board members will stay at their seats. But I will ask the Top Tigers, when I announce their name, please come and stand with us here and receive your bag and receive your flower while I'm reading your nomination form, if you would, please. So our first Top Tiger is a 5th grade student at DeWitt Elementary, Abigail Bechter. Hi, Abigail.
Hey, come on, right over here.
Abigail is a 5th grade student at DeWitt Elementary School. She exhibits Black Tiger Pride each and every day. Abby is a hardworking student who loves learning new things and sharing her knowledge. Abigail comes to school with a positive attitude and puts forth her best effort in everything that she does. This is why Abby has been selected as our Top Tiger. Congratulations, Abigail Bechter. Perfect. It's always hard to be the first one, and you did it famously. Our next top tiger is also a 5th grade student at DeWitt Elementary, Sergio Anderson. You look nice, Sergio.
Very good. Right over here.
Right over here. Fine. Thank you. Thank you.
That's for you.
Thank you. That's for you.
Sergio is a 5th grader at DeWitt Elementary who demonstrates all of the characteristics of a top tiger. Sergio comes to school with a positive attitude and an eagerness to learn. The interactions observed in class have shown Sergio's great respect for all of the adults and students in the classroom. He never fails to offer help to another student in need. It is my honor to nominate Sergio as this month's top tiger. Congratulations. I wish I could shake their hand like I used to. Our next top tiger is a 5th grade student from Lincoln Elementary, Malia Chin. Unfortunately, Malia is not with us, but I'm still going to read her nomination form. Malia is such a joy to have in class, whether it is online or in person. She comes to each class with a smile on her face. She always has a positive attitude that is contagious. She is very responsible for her learning. She always checks in with her teachers and asks great questions. Malia has kept up with all of her schedule changes, and she is just an amazing young lady. She loves spending time with her family and decorating her bedroom. We are so proud of our top tiger, Malia. So just for everyone's knowledge, we nominate both in-person and remote learning academy. They're all our kids. And so they're all included. Our next top tiger is a 5th grade student at Lincoln Elementary, Amir Haynes. Hi, Amir.
Hi, Amir. There you go. Good job. You're welcome.
Amir is an enthusiastic learner who has strongly impressed his teachers and peers in the short time he has been at Lincoln. He is most passionate about 2 things, football and learning. I'm with you, man. Amir plays organized football and loves to share stories of plays and games. In the classroom, he participates often and is fully engaged in all lessons at all times. Amir's infectious smile can't be contained by a mask, and his positive attitude lifts the spirits of anyone who has the opportunity to work with him. Congratulations on being a top tiger, Amir. Our next top tiger is a 4th grade student at Preston Elementary School, Gio Campisi. Hi, Gio.
Hi.
Face it.
Make sure I got the right one. There you
Excellent.
go. Nice job.
Gio is a positive and responsible 4th grade student at Preston Elementary School. He is someone I can depend on to pay attention and participate in class. He not only wants to do well for himself, but for all of his classmates too. Gio is kind, considerate, and has a positive attitude. He is a member of Cub Scouts and is very proud of this honor. He also runs cross country and track for Cuyahoga Falls. That's my man. I am honored to call him a top tiger. Congratulations, Gio. Our next top tiger is also a 4th grade student at Preston Elementary School, Nadia Lemoyne. Not-
This is mine, sorry.
Oops.
The wrong thing.
Okay,
You get
we
this.
good?
There you go.
Nadia has been a very responsible fourth grade student at Preston Elementary. She has adapted well to online and hybrid learning. Her daily work reflects her positive attitude towards school. Nadia lives out of our Preston pride promise every day. I can always count on her to be kind and respectful. I feel very fortunate to work with such a terrific, self-motivated young lady. Congratulations, Nadia. Our next top Tiger is a fifth grade student at Price Elementary School, Peyton Porinchek. Hi, Peyton. During the first 9 weeks of the hectic year, Peyton has been a model student in representing what Black Tiger pride should look like in a student. Peyton is respectful, outgoing, energetic, and above anything else, very responsible as far as finishing her work and showing up to Zoom meetings in a timely manner. Peyton is certainly a student I have been able to count on at the beginning of this year. Outside of school, Peyton is a dancer in which she competes in various competitions and recitals during the year. She is versatile in the types of dance she does, which include tap, ballet, jazz, and lyrical. Peyton has a love for animals and even has 4 pets of her own, which include a dog, a cat, a gecko, and a bearded dragon. We are very, very happy to have this student in our life. Congratulations, Peyton. Our next top Tiger is a fifth grade student at Price Elementary School, Matthew Curry. Hi, Matthew.
Matthew. Thank you.
Matthew is a fifth grade student from Elizabeth Price Elementary School, currently attending the Black Tiger Remote Learning Academy for the first semester of the 2020-21 school year. This youngster displays good citizenship on a regular basis. For example, he makes the effort to arrive at classes on time, complete work as scheduled, and participate appropriately in a remote environment. Matthew can be counted on as a role model who takes responsibility. Working hard to learn and meet grade level standards is a challenging task, and Matthew rises to the occasion. His habits and attitude prove his desire to achieve academic excellence. Matthew continuously strives to perform his best, not only on tests, but also on practice assignments. Mr. Curry doesn't shy away from cooperating with his classmates and teachers or offering his input. He has respect for himself and others. It is apparent he is navigating through the online learning setting as an active member of our Black Tiger community. His Black Tiger pride should be evident to everyone who knows him. Congratulations, Matthew, on being a top Tiger. Our next top Tiger, third grade student at Richardson Elementary School, Rihanna Akbarova. Ms. Taraggio and Ms. Sullivan are proud to nominate Rihanna as a top Tiger. Learning is so different this year, and Rihanna has shown that she can be flexible and continue to try her best. She is a very hard worker, showing up to all of her Zoom meetings with a smile on her face. She balances her schedule with a positive attitude, participating in class daily. She's eager to learn new things. She has a great sense of humor, a heart of gold, and a strong work ethic. We're very proud to call Rihanna a top Tiger. Our next top Tiger is third grade student at Richardson Elementary, Alyssa Carmichael. Hi, Alyssa. It is a pleasure to nominate Alyssa as this month's top Tiger in third grade from Richardson Elementary School. Alyssa is new to our school this year, but not to the district. She made a very positive impact during online learning and continues to do so in person as well. Alyssa is hardworking and always tries her best in her work and to participate in discussions. She is a positive role model toward her classmates. Outside of school, Alyssa participates in tap dance and softball. She enjoys arts and crafts and loves to play board games and spend time with family on walks. Congratulations, Alyssa Carmichael, on being a top Tiger this year. Our next top Tiger is a fifth grade student at Silver Lake Elementary, Alice Heldreth. Hi, Alice. We are very proud to nominate Alice for the Top Tiger Award this month. Alice has shown Black Tiger pride throughout this challenging first quarter. Alice always shows respect for her classmates and teachers. She is friendly and kind and always very polite. Alice takes responsibility for her education. During online learning, Alice is present at each scheduled Zoom meeting, and she works hard to complete her assignments on Google Classroom. If she has a question, she always asks and works hard to make corrections when needed. Whether in the classroom, hallways, or outside, Alice is a student who can be counted on to practice safety. Alice exudes all of the qualities of a Cuyahoga Falls top Tiger, and for these reasons, she's truly deserving of this award. Congratulations. Our next top Tiger is also a fifth grade student at Silver Lake Elementary, Benjamin Jabor. Ben Jabor is a great example of a top Tiger. Ben comes to school every day wanting to work hard and try his best. He is kind and respectful to his classmates, and I can always count on him to make responsible decisions. Ben is learning to ask questions and to seek out help when needed. These are great study skill qualities of a great student. We're very proud of Ben's efforts so far this school year. Congratulations on being a top Tiger, Benjamin Jabor. It concludes our top Tigers for this evening. Thank you so much for being here. You're free to go. Unless you want to stay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Gio. Thanks for coming, Regina. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Congratulations.
Take care, all.
Leo.
Bye-bye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Paula.
Thanks, Paula.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Daddy,
See you, Paul.
did you ever have any of the Campese boys? Charles?
I had
Is that their dad? He's not a part of their life. That's too bad.
Yeah.
Because I had him at breast.
And he was.
I graduated with Paula's son this year.
Oh my God.
He
Just didn't work out. Huh?
Grew up, well, we went to Preston too.
I'm glad I didn't say anything.
She's over
because as
on,
soon as I saw that last name, it's like,
Yeah,
oh, I know
no.
I
that.
can't think of
Yeah,
the name.
it's
It's
not
where
happening.
she was Drew
I can't
Drew
even
Riley's
remember
neighbor when he lived
Charlie
there.
Campese lived on Bailey Road.
Yeah, now they're back on Tudor, I think it is, over there.
Well, I
If
mean, when
she's
he was
still-
a kindergartner,
Well, yeah.
he lived on Bailey Road on top of the hill over there.
Okay, next I would invite Mr. Dudowns, Mr. Lazar, and Dr. Seifert to the podium for a presentation. Pass this up. Good. Go ahead. You can get started.
Brian, did you get the presentation? Oh. I think you did.
You gotta reach a little farther.
Also in color running.
It's gonna be up there. We can also share with you
Look at that.
digitally because we made a few changes since we printed it, but yes. You know how it goes, as soon as you print it, you realize that you're gonna see.
You have an aha.
All right.
Take it away.
Good evening, President Schofield, ladies and gentlemen of the board. It's a pleasure to be here to provide this presentation for you. You can see the title is Student Data Analysis, November 4th, 2020. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our mission, as you know, every student, every day, every opportunity. Cuyahoga Falls is Cuyahoga Falls City School District, the hub of our community, committed to a culture of caring. We innovate, we create, we personalize education for all. Next slide, please. All right, so this hard to read slide here is our first comparative slide. So I'll give you a little bit of background information. MAP is the district-wide benchmark assessment that we utilize 3 times a year to check on the progress, academic progress of our students. So you'll see 3 columns here. This specific slide is titled Fall of 2019. So this is their RIT score. The columns are, so you can see the grade levels on the far left side, and you see total students that are meeting, exceeding their projected growth. Essentially what MAP does is it takes the history of student performance on the assessment and creates a projection that they anticipate that child to receive the following fall. So for this table, it's a comparison from 2019 fall to 2020 fall, which just completed the testing window. So you see in the second column, the actual quantity of students that took that assessment at each grade level. And the final column is the percentage of students meeting or exceeding the projected growth based on what MAP had projected for them last fall in 2019. So I'll give you just a minute to kind of look that over a little bit.
One thing to note is that MAP did re-norm over the summer. Sorry. One thing to note is that MAP re-normed over the summer. So the projections that are reflected here are based on the re-norming. We have not had time to dig into that and see exactly how that's reflected. The projections that we looked at are based on the renorming, but we haven't had a chance to see, like in comparison, what that exactly means to the students.
So we're not sure if the decrease in scores are related to the renorming or perhaps the disturbance of instruction between March and this present time, correct?
Well, I'm sure there's definitely, obviously,
A combination of both.
yeah, definitely there's a correlation to loss of instruction.
Right.
Typical instruction, but there could also be a correlation to the renorming. I'm not sure right now what that might be.
Can we get some information about the renorming, exactly what they did? So
Sure.
that we can know how scores were affected universally, because a MAP score is not just for our own district. It's for all of the districts that are involved in this process of assessment. So it would be nice to know exactly what they did in the renorming so that we know how these scores were impacted universally.
Sure. And
I think that's critical, because when you look at the difference between the scores, there's a marked difference, and it would be nice to know whether it's a form of the scale of the assessment, or like we're facing, the interruption of a normal school day, if you will, and instruction.
Absolutely. I apologize
you.
for interrupting. And I know Dr. Nichols is preparing data for you as well as part of his.
Thank you.
Reporting.
If it is typical, and I haven't dived into it either. But if it is typical in terms of renorming, it's to take a look at all of the schools, all of the students that take the MAP assessments and readjust the scores, the RIT scores, based upon their grade level. So it would be an adjustment up or down of those RIT scores based on the total population across the United States, if it is typical of what renorming usually is. And I haven't dived into it to find out if those scores went up or they went down in terms of grade level expectation.
Well, we know what we're hoping for, don't we?
Well,
I mean, it's concerning because the public doesn't always understand renorming and how tests are adjusted from year to year. So you're not always comparing apples to apples. Sometimes we're looking at apples and oranges. And when people take a look at these, we need to have information to justify how this has impacted not just our school system, but school systems throughout the area or anyone who implements this form of assessment.
So recently, NWEA MAP has come out with some COVID-specific information that's brand new. And so again, I mean, brand new within a week or two that we've learned about it. So it's not something that we've had time to dig into, but there's information out there about COVID slide, how that's affecting the learning. And they have, MAP is international. It's used around the entire world. So they have data that's from the entire world, but then they also have national data. So their warehouse of how they do that norming is of a great scope. So that kind of that tends to give you an idea that the fluctuation will probably not be tremendous because of the huge scope. And it's also been around, Julie and I were trying to figure it out. It's well over 15 years. It might be 20, might be longer than that, but their warehouse of data is just tremendous. So that's why it's such a good piece to use.
Next slide, please, sir. And then you see identical quantities associated with the MAP side of the assessment. So we were looking at the reading assessment scores, fall to fall comparison. And what you'll see here is the math score comparison, fall to fall, and the percentages that are associated with students meeting or exceeding the projected growth based on MAP 2019.
when you receive my initial document, the front pages are loaded with statistical information. I have included this information by building and grade level in my initial document. You will also see it by building on projections that I've included in previous documents. It identifies on track for 22 plus on ACT and on track for, if we ever take them again, state assessments on proficiency.
Yeah, one thing we'd like to point out to you as well is, like on this slide, you'll see that 10th grade is not included, and you also don't see a representative sample from kindergarten, 11th or 12th grade. It's because due to the grades that are tested in MAP and the sample sizes. So we kind of mirrored the same sample size that the state utilizes, so 20 or fewer students. We did not include any data because it wouldn't be statistically significant. Or the student didn't take both the fall and spring, or both fall assessments in order to be included.
So the next 4 slides that we have are representing the student report card grades for grades 3 through 5. You can see on the pages that you have comparison data from the fall of 2019 and the fall of 2020 for reading. And then on the next page, you have the math data. So you can see we always want our highest number counts and our percentages to be an A, B, or a C, C being average. So just like the state report card, if a student can earn a C, that means that they're mastering their proficiency level with the standards.
Can you tell me what E and an I are?
Sure. An E, a teacher has the ability to have a student be exempt for certain reasons, potentially medical reasons, or it can stand for effort. And then that teacher has that conversation with the building principal as well as with those parents. This fall, we utilized an I a little bit more for incomplete so that we can keep working with those students and try to help them make up the work, learn the work a little bit better, have better mastery. So you can see that I wasn't really used last year. And that's something that we're leaning toward a little bit more this year because we want students to have every opportunity to master and have access to that instructional process and learn the material. There's no data for K1 and 2 because their grades are adequate progress, limited progress, not enough progress.
And as you keep moving forward, you'll see the same type of data for our middle schools. So we have reading grades, which in middle school we call English Language Arts or ELA. And you'll see a slight difference in terms of numbers. I did not include with the 6 through 8 data when you're looking at the English Language Arts. I actually combined, we have students in 8th grade who are taking English Language Arts 9. I just combined them in as 8th graders. I just added those numbers together. We had a little bit smaller cohort of 8th graders last fall. And so I just added them in all together. Whereas when you look at the math, and then I did the same thing for fall 2020, just to give you a true comparison. And then the P is for passing. Where kind of similar to that E, where students were given that grade. And again, those happened with conversations with principals. We had students, just so many situations going on at home. Principals, teachers, myself, Dr. Seifert, just having so many conversations with parents about things going on at home. You know, we have students in quarantine for a couple of weeks, or not necessarily COVID positive, but maybe they've been exposed and so they've been at home. And so, you know, we're not trying not to do anything to the detriment of their GPA and things like that, and that sort of thing. So as you look at the math in 6 through 8, then it's broken down a little bit more. And you'll see the numbers are skewed a little bit. I didn't even include all of the acceleration in there, but with our 6th graders, so we have 6th graders who are taking 6th grade math, 7th grade math, and pre-algebra. And then we have 7th graders who are taking 7th grade math, pre-algebra, and algebra. And then we have 8th graders who are taking 8th grade math, algebra, and geometry. So I included as much as I could and broke that down a little bit more for you. So, you know, as you can see, we don't have only 211 8th graders across the district. We have more than that. And we also have more than 241 7th graders. So you can see that the students who are in those accelerations are overall doing very well. We did have some students who were struggling last fall, and we had some students who were struggling this fall as well. Typically, a student who is in an accelerated pathway who's struggling, that is when the teachers contact me, and then I talk to the parents about, is this the right placement for them?
should we consider moving them out of the accelerated pathway, or is there something going on at home that, you know, we need to talk about? I've had a lot of conversations recently about how can we help you? And, you know, these are unusual times. So, you know, what can we do? I've had parents in my office, and I had my favorite story was the young man I had in my office a couple weeks ago with his mom, and we set up a list of the things he can do to help himself, and he, you know, going on. And then we just listed 4 simple things that he could do to help himself. And I said, okay, so you're going to sign this, Mom, you're going to put this on the refrigerator. And I looked down and I said, oh, did you forget how to spell your name? He said, no, I didn't put the last letter because I didn't want to sign it. And I said, well, too bad for you. My brother's a lawyer. I know all the tricks. So I need you to put that last letter there. And then, you know, Mom, you're going to put that on the fridge, and this is what you're going to do every day, you know, and it's going to be a new grading period. Let's get on track. And, you know, we need to keep moving forward. But these are just unusual times, and the students are having to learn younger how to self-regulate. So, and then as you move forward into the ELA, again, that's English and Language Arts for our 9th through 12th graders. So I only included kind of what for lack of a better term, our traditional pathway. So English Language Arts 9, Honors English Language Arts 9, and ELA 10. So some of our 9th graders, again, have already taken ELA 9 in the middle school. And so the students are kind of moved ahead a little bit, but we have all sorts of English electives at the high school. So not everyone is in one of these traditional pathways after 10th grade, because ELA 9 and ELA 10 are required. They were required because the end of course exams, but then after the 10th grade ELA, then they can take all sorts of our English electives. They can take College Credit Plus courses and so on and so forth in order to get those English credits, to get their 4 English credits for graduation. So I only did these basic classes. Otherwise, you would be reading pages and pages and pages of just the ELA courses. And then same thing for math. So as you look at last fall to this fall, you can see, and I only included first-time takers. You know, we have students that, whether it was fall 2019 or fall 2020, we do have students that did not complete the work required, and so they did not pass the course, and so they either retake the course in credit recovery, or they retake the course in person with the teacher. Sometimes if a student passes the end of course exam with a 3 or higher, then they're able to test out of the course, because sometimes it's homework habits, it's truancy, and things like that. It isn't that the students don't have the ability. Sometimes there's something else going on there. And then when you look at the math, I gave you only 9th graders, 10th graders, and 11th graders with algebra, geometry, and algebra 2, because again, we have so many different pathways in math where students can move with the algebra 2. We have students who take senior college math. We have students who take pre-calculus, students who take calculus, students who go the CCP pathway, and so on and so forth. Mr. Hutch, would you mind? Yeah, thank you. Whoop. Yeah, there we go. Any questions about the grade count? I will say this fall, as I've talked to so many teachers and so many parents, you know, the teachers are just between, at the secondary level, you know, sending reminds, sending emails, using Google Classroom, and so on and so forth. And they have just sent so much communication to the students, to the parents, trying to get hold of them. You know, I walked into a teacher's classroom one day and she showed me a list. These are the students that I haven't seen for 3 days. These are the students that I have seen, but they haven't turned in homework. I sent these communications, and then she had highlighted almost every name on the list because she had sent the emails the day before, and she had heard back from almost everyone within the 24 hours, which was awesome. But just trying to keep up with everything. is really quite a task.
I have a question for you. And the Roberts PTO meeting last week, Mr. Geyer was talking about how the MAP scores for students in his building were like over here, like in a like feeling kind of okay about it, and then grades were over here. And he was talking with his building leadership team about that. Is that something we're seeing broader? Is that a Roberts thing? Is that something we're seeing? And
I think that's probably pretty common because the MAP scores reflect the students' abilities, and the grades are reflecting. And I feel badly as I've talked to parents, and I've actually had students just reach out to me via email because I work with the middle school students through Acceleration, and the students are saying, I feel unmotivated. I feel they're calling themselves lazy, which just breaks my heart because it's not a teacher saying that to them. They're saying it about themselves. They're feeling badly about where they are with their work. They're not getting the work done for whatever reason it is. They're not at a point. None of the parents that I've spoken with, and I've called probably 15 parents in the last 2 weeks, have said, unlike in the spring, like, I don't know where to find the work. No, that hasn't been that's not the problem anymore. But it's I just can't get myself motivated to do it. I'm not. It's that sort of thing. And so I'm not surprised that the grades are lower than the students' abilities. Mr. Hutch, if you wouldn't mind, the next thing we have are the GPA comparisons. So I did, we don't do GPAs before students reach 6th grade. So there is no true comparison for our current 6th graders. But then comparing fall 2019 to fall 2020, you can see 7th graders. So 43% of our students had an increase or have stayed status quo from fall 2019 to fall 2020, and 57% a decrease. 8th grade, 64% had an increase or stayed the same. So that's pretty positive, actually, because SEI, which is one of the groups that we work with locally, the Summit Education Initiative, tells us that students' 8th grade scores are actually a great predictor of their future success. So that's kind of a positive thing for us to see there. So those are middle school GPAs. And then as you go forward, the next slide is the same information for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And they aren't where we want them to be. 38% increase or status quo, 43%, 34%, and 42% are an increase or status quo. And, as Dr. Nichols' question is always, what are we going to do about it? That was one of the reasons why we changed our afternoon schedule to not be those 15-minute classes, but instead to be a time where students can make appointments with teachers to get the help that they need. And teachers can reach out to students to have them come in for extra help. Some of the teachers are setting up a larger Zoom and inviting multiple students. Sometimes it's 1 or 2 students at a time. It's all kind of dependent on the type of class and that sort of thing, to really try and help the students get engaged, get involved, reaching out, what can I do to really try and help boost this for the second quarter. Things were so different from the spring to where they are in the fall. And so that was one of the big reasons that we made that change.
All right. A little bit more of a dismal slide here. We're taking a look from fall to fall 2019 to 2020. Attendance hours of absence. So you see the columns there. 19's on the top, 2020's on the bottom. Excused absence hours have significantly decreased. Unexcused absence hours, quite the opposite, significantly increased. One of the highlights is that our suspension hours are significantly down.
Mr. Lazar, could you explain to me how the teachers know when they don't have students there, whether they are excused or unexcused?
Yeah, of
How
course.
do they get that information?
Yeah, so I asked the same question myself and a little bit more in depth, I think. So what happens is a teacher will take their attendance, their daily attendance in the elementary level, for example. So if that student isn't there, which applies both to in-person instruction in option 1 as well as virtual instruction in option 2, they'll mark them absent. And then that attendance is all monitored by the building administrative assistant, who would then, as phone calls come in and parents are calling or giving doctor's notices or illnesses are being tracked for any type of quarantine or anything like that. So they have very specific, Chris Shaw's done a great job coding absences. So it's the building administrative assistants that are expected to mark whether or not a student is excused absence in the system. And if that's not changed or modified, it remains as an unexcused absence.
So it starts as an unexcused, and then as we have additional information, then it migrates to excused if it's appropriate. What is even more telling in this slide is remember that we limited enrollment this year. So we have maybe 300 fewer students in our district. And so those hours reflect 300, perhaps 300 fewer students.
And the next question would be then, we see that it's a huge problem. What can we do? I mean, I hate to see teachers using instructional time for attendance issues, but yet I know that they notify the parents, but when you've got that number, what can be done to maybe keep instructional time going without checking on attendance? I guess that's my question.
Sure.
As a former classroom teacher, if I was teaching now and I'm logging in to see which students are there, okay, who's coming late? Are they coming at all? Who's leaving early? Who's excused? Who isn't excused? How do I keep track of that as a teacher?
So,
And work with instructional time too.
one of the nice features of the Zoom Pro is that teachers can actually go back at any time and they can print a report without having to actually stop their instruction and write that down for the virtual times. I mean, in the in-classroom time, that's something that they're kind of used to doing anyway.
Right.
You know, their students are checking in the office and that sort of thing. In terms of, I mean, we do have, I would have to verify this with Ms. Shaw, who, once again, we have to thank for compiling all this data for us before we turn it into the charts. But my guess would be that we have more truancies than we've had in the past. And I know, like at the high school, like Mr. DeFrancisco just took a long list and started just calling home last, like, end of the week before last. And, you know, again, trying to make connections with parents, guardians, grandparents, whoever he could reach. And, you know, what can we do? How can we help? You know, what is it that is preventing your child from getting here? And is there any way that we can help make things better to get them here on the days that they're supposed to be here? Or is there something at home that's preventing them from, you know, coming for the virtual? You know, Mr. Hutch was able to provide hotspots. That's you calling yourself.
Sorry, that's me calling myself. That's our all call for this evening.
You know, Mr. Hutch, as I was saying, provided hotspots for some families that needed them because they didn't have internet access at home. So, as I think I know Mr. DeFrancisco called, and I think maybe Mr. Smith also made calls as well. You know, I know Mr. Sloan makes lots of calls. I'm sure the elementary principals and the middle school principals do as well. Those are just ones that I know for sure we're making calls. But what is it that we can do to help get your child here? We haven't seen them. How can we help? How can we help you? Because we're not seeing Susie, Sally, Jimmy, Johnny, and and we need to see them. You know, we want to see them, whether it's on the computer or in a seat.
Well, and that's an issue. You know, generally when kids show up physically, you see them on the virtually thing. Could they be there in the morning and then not there for the next class? Or, I mean, what's the consistency? Is it a student missing the entire day? Is it a group of students or a student missing intermittently throughout the day? What kind of pattern are we seeing with these attendance hours? Do we know?
You know, we have every pattern that you can possibly imagine.
I would tend to say
So-
all of the above.
Yeah, so to think that there's one pattern, it's probably not the case. However, if you were to ask the building principals and the individual teachers, they can give you the patterns of the students because they're monitoring it, they're watching it, they're sending a dojo right while they're teaching and getting a student online. So they're doing all of those things, and it's truly a team effort at the building level because it's all of those people together that are working to try to get those parents supporting the students so the students can actually be there. So the school counselors are involved, child and family guidance is involved, the principals are involved, the school psychs are involved. It's just truly this big team effort at the buildings to make sure that all of this is taking place. And their biggest concern is the safety of the students. So that's always their primary thing, is if that student isn't there that next hour, why is it? And they don't want to let that go because they want to make sure that that child is coming back. And they know which students are potentially home alone for an hour and they're watching them. They know the ins and outs of their students. And you know, as a teacher, you know the ins and outs of your students and what's going on and why it's going on. So really the building principals and the teachers, those are our best sources for that information.
But I also think, and then I'll be quiet, I promise, there's a correlation between the number of missed instructional hours and grades. I mean, they have to be working hand in hand. If I don't go to class and I don't do my work, then I'm not going to be successful. So it sounds as though we're attempting to address that. But what are other systems doing? Because I can't believe that we're isolated and we're the only system experiencing this. What recommendations are coming from systems throughout the state that are trying to remedy the same problem we're remedying? Have they addressed it yet?
There aren't. Everybody's trying to figure it out on the fly. House Bill 410 is still alive and well. They'll receive letters, the same letters that they would have received, in person, fall 2019. They'll receive those same letters. It's just the scale of those attendance meetings and those kinds of things that are now coming to fruition. I mean, it's a different scale.
One of the biggest things
correct.
that's, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean,
We have a
you're
data.
seeing it. You're absolutely seeing it through the data.
Do we have any data on the success of the personal contacts? We had talked about attendance policy way back when we were first launching this year,
Well,
and how after 3 days of I don't know where you are, then we call home and so on. Do we see an impact when a personal contact is made versus a form letter or?
To be honest, like even I mentioned, I called probably 15 parents myself. I feel like some parents are almost over inundated with contact at this point, to the point where they're not responding as quickly. Like, I record each day, the date and the time of the people that I've called. And, I had a mom call me back, and it had been a week and a half since I called. And of course, everyone is busy, and it wasn't, I'm not judging her. But she called me back. So that's, I'm glad that I was thankful that she called me back and we had a conversation and that sort of thing. But not everyone is, for every one person that Mr. DeFrancisco got hold of as he was making truancy calls, there were 3 people that he didn't get hold of. They didn't call back. They didn't answer the phone. People haven't been updating their final forms. We sent out the final forms. As we were doing the the third grade state test. We didn't have final forms for the people that were coming into the building who had been at home. I asked secretaries to check. I had 6 out of 24, maybe. Just that sort of thing. So trying to get hold of people has been really, it's really been a challenge.
You also requested conference information, and that'll be presented at our next meeting, November 18th. So we have both Julie and Rachel compiling conference information with their building principals and so on and so forth. You might have seen that in some of the notes that the principals have, bulletins that they've sent to their staff and so on and so forth. So, yeah, that stuff is taking place.
And I've talked with Dr. Nichols as well about that. I think some of this is a little unintentionally inflated because I think Chris Shaw does a phenomenal job. We all know that. And she has all these different codes and what's going on and if your technology doesn't work. But I don't think our families know that. And I don't think our families are going to call the school and say, my technology didn't work, my kid's going to miss the rest of the day, because I know families that aren't doing that, and so then that's going to get up there. And would that have been excused? Yes, but now it's unexcused. I know families where kids was stuck in the waiting room on the Zoom the whole time. So they're absent even though they were trying to get in. I know of families that their kid was in the Zoom, got marked absent. And at a certain point, parents go, am I really going to call the school, or am I just going to, move on and know that my kid got that education? Or I think people are just generally exhausted. We're all exhausted by the state of our world with this pandemic. And I think people are throwing up their hands a lot more than they otherwise would. And, should I call the school because my internet's down, my kids can't get on today? Yeah. Am I going to? Probably not. I think that's just where a lot of people are. So that's not to disvalue this work, because this is what we've got and it's what's going to be reported because they didn't make those phone calls. But I think there's a piece of this that isn't intentionally missing necessarily, that there's these other things going on and people are just over it for.
We want to make sure that we don't believe that anybody's intentionally
Yeah.
sabotaging their child's
Oh
education,
no, I'm not saying
keeping
that.
their kids from school. So we don't want this particular slide to come across in any way that we think that parents are not invested in their child's education and that they don't want great things for their child, because we absolutely have the utmost faith in our families and their children.
Yeah, just some final thoughts in terms of attendance and perhaps a nice little segue to a future segment of dialogue later this meeting. Student success and wellness, this obviously kind of echoes the necessity for a systemic approach to how we're addressing student attendance. To make sure that we're providing the necessary supports for students to log on and informing them appropriately, but also to be able to track what we're doing and if it's effective. There's beautiful stories, as Julie and Rachel alluded to, about what people are doing and working really hard to try to make contacts with families and reaching out. But we'll certainly see what we can do to provide something a little more systemic moving forward. All right, so the next couple slides here, what you're going to see is just a reflection that we've put together in terms of where did we start. We thought it was important to acknowledge the work that's been ongoing in the district. So the bullet points that you see here on this page reflect where we started in the spring of 2020 when this global pandemic took place, the immediacy of how that impacted the school district and what we were able to operationalize in such a short amount of time. So I won't read those directly to you, maybe highlight just a few of them. That I mentioned, the abrupt change, the implementation of Google Classroom, certainly some of the variables that impacted potentially some of the data that you've seen thus far. The grading, attendance, social emotional learning, which is a reoccurring theme.
So as Dr. Nichols always says to us, what are we going to do about it? So we started in the spring, obviously analyzing what was taking place, but then we gathered a planning task force together and they worked through things that had been taking place in the spring, things that we knew were going to be coming up, and potentially even predictions for the fall. So that planning task force worked throughout the summer, analyzing all of that different kind of data and situations and trying to come up with potential solutions for us coming back in the fall. So you can see there's some information there. Then we were generously allotted that, Brian, can you go back, please? Thank you. We were generously allotted those 2 weeks at the beginning of the school year for professional development. So you can see that we use that in lots of different ways. And then the bottom, probably the most important, was the continual focus on safety in our operations department and how supportive they've been with the entire district. So we haven't listed all of the things that we have worked on, but we just kind of highlighted a few things. Having the school calendar adjusted has helped a great deal. Akron Children's Hospital and their partnership with us is just a true blessing for everyone. Again, operations, everything they've done to help with physical space within the buildings and our building principals and how hard they've worked with all of their routines and the planning that they've done and all of that modeling and practicing that they've done with their students and staff to help keep everyone safe. Probably equally as important to their physical safety is their emotional safety. So all of the pieces that we have added into their already jam-packed learning schedule, we've made sure at the elementary level that the first 15 minutes of every day is reserved for a classroom meeting that focuses on social emotional health. And then the high school uses their Tiger Time, and middle school, is that right, Julie? Yes. And they use their Tiger Time for social emotional learning times. And as Mr. Lazar was referring to before, we have some pieces from the Success and Wellness programming with some lessons that have been created, and those are starting to be folded into instructional time. And then another very important thing is that students are held accountable for their learning now. There was a do no harm in the spring, and now they're held accountable. So it's a different kind of learning environment for them. Some of them are remote, some of them are coming hybrid, but they're held accountable whether they are in person, whether they're remote, whether it's live instruction, whatever type of learning they're experiencing, they're held accountable for that. So it's a true paradigm shift for our students as well as our teachers. And there's a learning curve with that, and that's okay, as long as we keep improving on that learning curve.
So I touched on this a little bit as I was talking, and as Dr. Seifert mentioned, we certainly, we know that all of our parents are doing the best we can. As Mr. Gomez pointed out, we are tired. Parents are tired. Students are tired. I was talking earlier today. I personally know 15 people who have COVID right now. I lost someone in my own family. And we have students experiencing that as well. This right here is what is most important to our students. It's their meeting their needs. This is what they come to school for. Learning is obviously important. We are here for student achievement and growth, but we have to meet these needs first. We need to make sure that when they come to school, whether it's online behind a screen or whether they're in our buildings, that they feel safe, that they're fed, that they have security and friendship, and the things that we were so worried about this summer. We thought, these kindergartners are not going to keep masks on. I don't know how many times I heard this summer, There is no way that these kids are going to keep masks on. They are not going to keep masks on. That is not going to happen. And what we have heard over and over is we have not had any problem with students wearing masks on. That has not been a problem from little itty bitty kindergartners all the way to the seniors. Kids are wearing their masks because they want to be in the classroom. They want to be at school. They want to learn. They want to see their friends. People said, well, it's not going to be normal. It's not going to be the way it was. Well, no, it is not the way it was. They can't hug each other. And I've heard teacher after teacher say, it breaks my heart when a kid goes to hug me at the end of the day. And I have to say, oh, I'm sorry, honey, I can't hug you. And that's really hard because they want to. But it is our job as educators to help them achieve their full potential. But we have to start all the way at the bottom. That's what we have to do. And it's just so important.
So here's a little bit more about our continuous improvement process. We're very, very fortunate to have been able to hire a K-12 coordinator for wellness and success. It's just an absolutely wonderful new addition to our Black Tiger family. We obviously added our Black Tiger Remote Learning Academy. We're very excited about all the progress that has taken place with the academy. We love to watch the growth with the students, but also with the programming and how everything's taking shape and kind of having a life of its own. So that's an absolutely wonderful addition that we've had take place. We tried to offer parents and families some different learning options to help fit their lifestyle and what they needed. Technology resources have blossomed and grown. Mr. Hutch has kind of taken that and he's run with it, and it's been absolutely wonderful. His department works incredibly hard, and we're so grateful for everything that they do. We continue to send out surveys. We backed off at the beginning of the year because our parents had a lot of surveys coming from us in the early summer, but we've started that again to start gathering some more information to help make sure that our refining process is continuous. And then obviously we want to work very hard to keep our learning academy and our in-person instruction in tandem, working well together. So thank you for listening to us. We appreciate that. Do you have any questions?
Dr. Seifert, Mr. Lazar, Mrs. Jones, we appreciate your presentation. Any questions, board members? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice job.
Item E, executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G4. It is hereby moved that the board adjourn to executive session to review negotiations or bargaining sessions with employees concerning compensation and other terms and conditions of employment. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, Mr. Gomez.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mrs. Moffett,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez, aye. Ms. Schofield.
Aye.
It is 6:53 p.m.
We're back in public session, ready for item F, Treasurer CFO's business consent agenda.
On behalf of Mrs. Stoikoi, I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve all items listed in the Treasurer CFO's business consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Moffett,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez, aye. Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Item G, Treasurer CFO's business. In place of Mrs. Stoikoi tonight, Mr. Gomez.
I got nothing. Nothing for her.
No comment.
Nothing for Christy.
All righty, thank you. We're ready for item H, Superintendent CEO's business consent agenda.
Thank you, President Schofield, members of the board. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve all items listed in the superintendent's business consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second. Any discussion?
I wanted to make two comments. First of all, just how exciting it is that we're able to keep our partnership with Schnee and keep them running as they are to do what they do for students. And secondly, I want to comment on our retirements. I didn't get a chance to know Kathy Carson well, but 30 years in student services, I can imagine how many families she assisted. Was probably many times the first person many of our families ever talked to as they became part of our school district. So thank you to her. And then Robin Worthington with 41 years, who I know Mrs. Moffett worked with as a fellow kindergarten teachers, and she was also my kindergarten teacher many years ago. So, I mean, she's made a huge difference in so many lives over 41 years.
In fact, I left Preston to go to Bolick, and Mrs. Worthington was able to transfer from DeWitt to Preston. So that's how that scenario worked out. She was able to go from part-time to full-time. So she's been a phenomenal Preston kindergarten teacher, and she is to be commended for the outstanding work she's done.
Thank you for your comments. Roll call, please.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez, aye. Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mrs. Moffett.
Aye.
In terms of my comments, first of all, Levy, kudos. We were all thrilled with the results of issue 36 last night and the support from our community. Frankly, the level of support was very near the pre-COVID level of support that we received for not only this levy, but our renewals in the past, and is absolutely as a result of our, in large part, our levy committee and the community members that we have on our levy committee. And I want to say their names specifically. Alicia Coco, Tim Belby, Bob Gruber, Wes Johnston, Ryan Smoz, Michelle Perot, Sarah Bonzoff, and to another degree, the Matt Weiss, Leslie Frank, Rebecca Brockmeyer, Pam Wingate, Gary DeReamer, Reverend Debbie Sachs, Dale Petty, and Evan Perot. These folks, you know, they contribute hours on end to supporting our levy campaign from the community perspective, and frankly, we can't do it without them. So thank you so much to our community members that show such support. I already mentioned that we would have a presentation on conference participation at our next board meeting. We're working on that those data right now. And that'll be it for right now.
Dr. Nick, I have a question. Will that committee be meeting again that you know of to wrap things up
Well,
by chance? Because I think it would be nice if the board could send them a letter of thanks.
okay. We have no scheduled date right now, but I'll pass that along to them. And I'll leave it there for right now. I don't want to I don't want to issue a buzzkill right now.
All right, thank you. I just I think it would be nice if we could send a letter as a board, because we're also appreciative and grateful, but it would be nice to have something in writing.
Maybe
that
we could
committee.
do
Can I suggest a
resolution.
letter to the editor from the Board of Education even, maybe? Perhaps?
That might be
Something very public?
something we can discuss as a board, correct?
I don't
I
know.
think that might be a great task of drafting that up for a new board member who's a college English professor.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm thinking that this might be a great idea.
And if he doesn't want to do it, we got a communications guy in the district. So.
Well, that's right, yeah. Or it could be a retired high school English teacher. but-
Oh, no.
Or maybe a retired middle
Middle school
school language arts teacher. I think we've got it covered no matter what.
So, the next piece is obviously the OFCC update, and I've provided you with timeline information. I put it out for all staff, trying to be very transparent about the timeline today in my correspondence with all users. And on our agenda during board business, you'll have a recommendation on ranking architects of record. And I know we have Chris Smith and Cheryl Fisher who are here as representatives of TDA. And so we'll address that at that time. And a return to school announcement, I just sent out an all-call this evening, 6:30, that we will be returning our K-5 student population all day, 5 days. And, okay. We're returning our K-5 student population all day, 5 days a week. And we also sent out commitment forms for second semester K-12. So that all call went out this evening. And I think that covers my list.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols.
Mhm.
Item J, board business. Item 1, board resolution approving tentative agreement, SEIU Local 1. Whereas representatives of the Board of Education and SEIU Local 1 engaged in collective bargaining for a successor collective bargaining agreement. And whereas the representatives of the board and SEIU Local 1 reached a tentative agreement on the terms and conditions for a successor agreement with a 3-year duration. And whereas the representatives of the board have been advised by the representatives of SEIU Local 1 that the tentative agreement attached as Exhibit A was ratified by the voting members of SEIU Local 1 on October 31st, 2020. And now therefore be it resolved that Section 1, the board hereby moves the tentative agreement for the successor agreement with SEIU Local 1, which is attached as Exhibit A. Section 2, the board directs the superintendent, treasurer, and district administration to take those steps necessary to complete the revision of the collective bargaining agreement with SEIU Local 1 in accordance with Exhibit A. Section 3 is further found and determined that all formal actions of this board concerning and related to the adoption of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this board, that all deliberations of this board and any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were adopted in meetings open to the public, and that all notices to the members of the Board of Education, media, and those requesting notice were accomplished in compliance with all requirements of the applicable laws, including but not limited to Revised Code 121.22.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just want to thank the members of the negotiating team on behalf of the board for the many hours they invested in this, as well as those that represented SEIU Local 1. I am enthusiastic about what we're voting on, and I am very thankful not just for this negotiated agreement, but for what the members of SEIU Local 1 are doing, what they do for us every day, especially what they're doing for us right now. They're the front lines in terms of keeping our buildings clean and sanitized and safe for students and staff. So they're invaluable to us.
I echo your comments, Mr. Gomez. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gomez, aye. Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mrs. Moffett,
Aye.
Dr. Hall.
Aye.
Item 2, resolution ranking the top 3 professional design groups. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt a resolution ranking the top 3 firms that responded to the district's request for qualifications for professional design services for the implementation of the district's master facilities plan, consisting of the construction of a new 612 facility, new stadium, a new auditorium, and such additional new construction, renovations, addition, and improvements as deemed necessary by the district, and authorizing the superintendent to enter into contract negotiations with the firm ranked most qualified. Is there a motion?
I'll
Second. Oh,
Who moved?
Patty and then Kathy.
Kathy, second?
Discussion?
A discussion, I would entertain the opportunity for Chris and Cheryl to make whatever comments they want to make. This would be the appropriate time.
You have to come up here because they record it.
Nice to see everybody.
Good to see
You also.
Well, hello. Really, we just want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much. I think you probably have an inkling about how important this is to me. As I was sitting back there watching the top Tigers get their awards, what spurred them in my memories is that no matter what award we got through high school and through school, we always got a flower with our awards. It's the only district that does that. I mean, we work in 300-400 districts, and this is the only one that has that unique tradition. So to be able to carry on stuff like that, those kind of traditions that have lived here in this district for a long time into the new facility, new building, is absolutely just going to be the honor of my life. I know that. So we don't take it lightly. It's really a blessing. So thank you all so much, and we look forward to doing this. So yeah, can't wait to get started. Can't wait. So would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. So a couple weeks ago when I got a call from Bill Prenisol at OFCC and said, hey, I want to give you heads up. We're about to call Cuyahoga Falls and tell them they can enter ELP. And I cried. I really cried. And fast forward a week or two later, and Dr. Nichols, Chris, and I, and Joe are video conferencing, and we're talking about the phone call. And Chris goes, Cheryl, are you crying? And I'm like, yes, stop looking at me. And that, I think that just truly represents how near and dear and personal this project is to us in our hearts. And I'm thankful, as you are now, just to be part of this. And now it's the second phase, and seeing everything come to fruition and to be a part of it is the best.
She's an honorary Black Tiger.
I still have my bond campaign sign
I
at
do too.
my desk.
Well, we were so pleased with your work with us as our pre-bond architect. And I think we set the bar high with the challenge of touring every single facility in the district, and logging more meeting hours than I think probably anybody in the area at least. But we were dead serious about getting it right this time. And we knew that we had to do our due diligence as a board and with our community and with our committee. And we are grateful for you because you embraced the concept and led the charge. And as a result, we've had great success. So we couldn't be more appreciative of your devotion to us, quite honestly, because I think that shows that it's made a difference.
It's our pleasure and our honor.
I think the level of transparency you provided was really appreciated by our community. Anything anyone asked for, you said, okay, you want to see that? You want to read that? You want this person to come in and talk about? Absolutely. And I think our community appreciates that so much. But it was exactly 365 days ago that our bond passed because there's a leap year. So it's 365 days. And Cheryl and I were sitting at a table together and we hugged because you were allowed to then. And
Yes.
we both cried then too. So it's exciting that 365 days later we can get moving. And I'm thrilled that we get to do it with your firm. And with you on a more personal level, because
Right.
you guys are great.
Awesome.
So thank you. Roll call, Mr. Gomez?
Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mrs. Moffett,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez, aye.
And here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Can't wait.
All right.
All right.
Now you guys got to work with me all the time.
All right.
Item 3, book study review, Mr. Anthony Gomez and Mr. Ryan Hutton.
All right, well, we're not as exciting as new buildings, but we still have some fun and exciting things to talk about. So we had our meeting together. It was Rob Sloan, myself, Mr. Gomez, Courtney Lewis, and Cameron Lazar, and Tracy Early were together on our book study group, looking at chapter 2 in the book Focus by Mike Schmoker. So we're going to just run through the questions. We were asked to answer 5 specific questions about our reading. So we, as a group, summarized the thoughts and feelings of everyone else and had discussions. It's a very fun to work with a board member and an administration together, cross-collaborating. It's nice to break down that barrier a little bit and spend time together discussing teaching and learning.
If I could just interject on the front end, the degree to which our administrators take this seriously is to be deeply appreciated by all of us. They put a lot of time and effort, and we promised Courtney Lewis that we would acknowledge the fact that she color coded all the responses, even
Yes,
took the time, and
her color coding was top
we
notch.
did promise that we would mention Courtney's color coding. So just want to get that in.
So I'm just going to go through a quick summary of each of the points, each of the questions. So the first question was identifying what you believe to be 2 key ideas from the reading. Of course, since we're summarizing, we have more of a narrative than 2 key ideas. But here's the gist of that conversation for us. From the book, the key factor in improving academic achievement for all students is an implemented curriculum that is content and literacy rich. According to Schmoker, quote, curriculum may be the single largest factor that affects school achievement levels, end quote. The implemented curriculum, what is actually taught versus what is written down, provides teachers with essential standards that can easily fit into a 9-month period. An effective curriculum does that. Along with these essential standards, teachers need to focus on reading, writing, and critical thinking skills to improve subject-specific vocabulary and knowledge. Students need to be taught content-specific vocabulary that can be used to deepen their understanding of the subject through writing, listening, and speaking and debating. School district administrators need to provide specific professional development on implementing these essential standards and how to provide students with the opportunities for writing across the curriculum so that these initiatives can be sustainable. And you'll see a theme coming across later in our discussion about writing across the curriculum, which we've been talking about for, I don't know, I haven't been in this business as long as a lot of people in this room, but I think we've all been talking about it for a long time. So the second key question we were asked is, what did we read that reinforced our thinking and beliefs? And the most important concept here is that educators have always known that a content-rich curriculum, not skill set-based test preparation, is the key to achievement levels and intellectual development. The author is pointing out what every teacher knows. To truly test for understanding and mastery, there needs to be a plan of what is important for students to know and how we're going to get them there. A content-rich curriculum drives the bus to take us there. Another important concept from this reading is the most high leverage factor that contributes to an education and closing achievement gaps is the amount of purposeful reading and writing that students do in school. This takes us back to the idea of writing across the curriculum. This initiative has come and gone several times in our 10 years as educators, but was rarely implemented with the fidelity and guidance needed for it to be successful. And this is every district across America. We've all worked in a district where this initiative has been implemented, often poorly. I don't believe any teacher believes that less reading and writing would help our students, but you just can't tell a teacher that twice a week their students need to write about their content area and expect source to flourish. There needs to be a plan in place. The idea of having fewer, more direct content standards could in fact result in our teachers teaching and our students learning at a much higher level of intellectual depth, which echoes the depth of knowledge conversations we've been having. The steps behind the process would be
to agree to what the standards should be and let the teachers, the experts, decide how, when, and what to teach to achieve those standards. They could dive into the standards without fear of test anxiety and simply teach students and materials that will drive education. All right, we all the nods tell us those are things that have always resonated with most of us as educators. So now what challenged our thinking? And this was fun. So we have most people, and this was the color-coded part that Courtney Lewis did so well. So just again, for the color coding. So most people's thinking and beliefs were challenged by Smoker's research regarding reducing and simplifying standards and the ineffectiveness of the Common Core. In recent years, Common Core has been an emphasis, so it is a challenge to hear that standards do not prepare these students to be successful and sometimes mislead teachers. Many of the responses appeared favorable or neutral. However, a few responses seemed to express explicit concern about oversimplification of the standards. A few people's thinking and beliefs were challenged by the example of the French school system's use of individualized instruction, resulting in declines for student groups. When they modeled an American model, their students performed less well. The research demonstrated that differentiation based on ability, culture, and interest resulted in a decline of achievement for all. However, differentiation is expected of teachers and as part of their evaluation and as part of our vision statement. Others' thinking and beliefs were challenged by different concepts such as the integration of literacy in content areas such as math, focusing on technology before curriculum and instruction, high expectations specifically in literacy for all students, and balancing instruction by teaching content and skills. Lastly, several others' thinking and beliefs were not challenged by the information in chapter 2. Comments included that they agree with the author in regards to Common Core curriculum and integrating literacy into content areas. So now we have to state a new learning. The highest recurring response suggested that the most prevalent new learning was around the theme of a viable curriculum which simplifies and limits standards. This learning was reflected in 12 of the responses. Other comments reflected on ignoring verbiage of the standards to focus on the main content necessary, setting clear expectations for purposeful reading and writing in all content areas. There were also thoughts shared about the RTI process and a potential negative impact. And the big question, what are we going to do about it? Number 5, how can we use this information to inform our work on behalf of our school community and the students we serve? I just have a few words here. Simplify. The common curriculum can have huge positive impacts on learning. This should focus on reading, writing, speaking, and reasoning every day. There should be consistent district-wide curricula that include consistent lessons, units, and common assessments. With this, we should become more prescriptive with our literacy expectations, defining what to read and write at each grade level, and introduce more rigorous expectations as they relate to literacy. This work must occur right now. Students must read and be read complex, vocabulary-rich fiction and nonfiction books. There's also some sentiment of getting rid of some of our current vocabulary books. This should steer our literacy curricula or literacy committee meetings this work. There must be a common taught curriculum in the district. Many districts have a common written curriculum that is not taught. Other districts don't even have that. Schmoker also outlines processes for TBTs to lead instructional change that are worth further investigation. We must create standards for the kinds and amounts of reading and writing that students should do in every class. How much, how often. Well-developed and implemented curriculum is the most effective way to drive systemic change in our community. That's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So thanks to the team. That was a fun exercise for us to do. So we look forward to the next one.
And I'll add a little bit to that. We had a lot of discussion about reading and writing needs to be in everything that we do. And that needs to be prescriptive that that's what we're doing, but also not overly prescriptive to say, every Wednesday, every social studies class is going to write an essay. You know, that there has to be that balance, and those are the discussions that have to come from this, not to just take one idea and run with it. We also talked about, France and the individualizing, and I put Mr. Lazar on the spot and said, as coordinator of exceptional children, how do you react to that? Because your job is to make sure that we're individualizing education for these people that fall under exceptional children. And we also have to realize that research sometimes conflicts. that there is a place for individualizing. That doesn't mean you throw it all away. And we're having that as well with the ICS conversations, that there's a way to over individualize and there's a way to properly individualize for students that need it. And it's once again finding that correct balance. And the mission statement came up a lot in the comments about how we personalize education for all. And I've seen that in some of the ICS responses as well as I've reviewed those. So it's got me thinking. I'm not saying we should change at this moment, but it's interesting how people, going through these different things that we're trying to push right now with focus and ICS, and that just keeps coming up. So I've also seen, and I think you all have too, how this book we're reading is going parallel with ICS in so many ways. They're complementing each other. They're suggesting very similar ideas. And the last two things is we talked about the obligation to be a good soldier and, teach Common Core because that's the curriculum we have. And how do you balance that with perhaps your belief that that's not what's right? So sometimes we're asking people to do things that may well go against their beliefs, and how does that balance and how does that really produce at the end of the day? And if we were to go to that model of, sitting down with the curriculum, what really can you teach in 9 months? If it's not everything, then it's not everything. And would that give people more confidence in what they're doing? And lastly, somebody made this comment, and I won't say who, but they said, should we ask ourselves, are students failing or is our curriculum failing students? And that's one that I've been thinking of every day since Monday. So it's a lot of thoughtful conversation.
Well, and I think some of the value here is that it is thought-provoking. That we don't have all the answers as we read. We may even have more questions. But it's more than an exercise if it can impact how we do our work here. So again, Mr. Hutch and Mr. Gomez, thank you for leading Reading Group 2. It sounds like you enjoyed your experience as much as we in Reading Group 1 enjoyed ours. It really is a worthwhile endeavor. Board members, any final comments on our second reading assignment here?
I thoroughly enjoyed the component where you have teachers working together, because I think too often we get so busy in our own silo that we forget the advantages we have of integrated curriculum. And I know that teachers are often overwhelmed with the writing component, because it does take time to work through what the students have written. But if it's an integrated curriculum, you have a number of people looking at that work. And if the kids are sharing in class, you all can hear what they're writing and the other students hear what they're writing too. And so there are ways to simplify without everyone looking at say, oh my gosh, we've got to do more reading and writing and my silo's full, So this book offers us opportunities to do exactly what you suggested. We have ways to think together to build a curriculum that's going to be beneficial, not just for our kids, but for the teachers as well, because we all know how hard everyone's working these days. And this offers us an opportunity to maybe simplify what we're doing in a more constructive manner that's more beneficial to our kids.
Thank you, Ms. Moffett. Dr. Hall?
Yeah, it seems my background's in the university classroom, obviously, and it seems to me that one of the things we learn when we're sort of thrown to the wolves at the university level is that you figure out what doesn't work and you adjust, right? And I know that's what's happening here too, but with many different requirements and things at the same time, you have to kind of wade your way through all of those things. And I'm reminded of a scholar who came to Kent State 2 different times while I was working for a faculty professional development center on campus there by the name of Ken Bain. And he's written one really influential book called What the Best College Teachers Do. And a lot of what he talks about aligns with that. Are you nodding because you've read it?
No, I'm
No,
agreeing.
it's similar to what great principals do and what great teachers do.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So
It's very similar to that.
It just called up association with that because I had the chance to meet and interact with him. at one time, and then he came back at a later time and gave another lecture. And so that's another interesting book to look at. So.
Yeah, those books that I mentioned are written by Todd Whitaker.
By what?
Todd Whitaker.
Okay.
Ms. White?
Well, I agreed with the first part of what you all came up with as the main key ideas. I really just want to say, how can we use this information? To me, you have to start with the standards and whittle them down to the basics, like 5 or 6 at the most. That's the beginning. That's what we did in English department. I had power standards for English. Being able to cite strong and thorough evidence to support analysis of what a text says explicitly, as well as being able to draw inferences. Being able to read, comprehend, and analyze higher level text independently. Being able to write an essay independently by organizational methods, revising and editing. Being able to research both short and sustained projects. Communicating effectively in small groups, in pairs, and whole class presentations. Those were the 5 power standards that you do all the time. You might not be able to do each one every day, but every 9 weeks you hit those repeatedly and all throughout the year. That's what you teach. And I don't care how you do it, but that's what was most important. Then on page 40, I love it, okay, because I did reading and writing workshop. Minimum number of pages. I used to start with books, number of books. Well, I soon found out that kids are smart. They're going to read a little tiny book and they're going to read 5 of those for an A or whatever. So I thought, nope. I'm going to pages. And that's what I did. And you have so many pages. It doesn't matter if it's a book, if it's fiction, nonfiction, but in every grade level, every class, you have a certain number of pages with a reading log. They write it down. It doesn't have to be, again, a book. It could be a magazine article. It could be the textbook. It could be anything. Keep track of the pages read. And if you want to be real specific, you can keep track of the genre. Same thing with the writing. You keep track of it. You have each student fill it out when they have finished writing something. And again, how many number of pages? I did not do that personally, but you could as you go through. How many pages of writing each? I love it. How many papers should be completed in the English department? Again, I'm going back to that. In 9th grade, we thought that at least 2 essays in the year should be done. Sophomores, I believe it was 3, because we didn't want to go too much for some teachers, but other teachers do more. And these were just for the regular classes, not the honors. In 11th grade, we did 4. In 12th grade, 5. And that was the bottom line. You could do more, but they had to at least do that many. And we focused a lot on literary analysis and argumentative pieces, because that's what we learned when I went to Keep, I think it was, at Kent State. The college people there, they got to learn how to write about, use logos and ethos and pathos. And I'm going, oh, man. And so we worked it in to the papers that the kids wrote. And that's kind of what we focused on, was literary analysis, and then, of course, argumentative. So I love this. It's something, I worked for, and the writing across the curriculum, that is so important. The reading is so important. Those are the 2 things that we need to focus on somehow, some way. But again, I think the first step is getting to the power standards in each grade level and each subject. What are they? What do we do? Because then you don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry about the tests. You don't have to worry. You're just using these. That's what you focus on. And I believe that's what he's saying. And, I really believe that that is the way to go. So I'm done.
Ms. Schofield, if I may.
Sure.
Just a couple of tidbits that I want you to think about, more rhetorical than anything. So when we talk about differentiation, we talk about personalization of education. That does not necessitate removal from the general ed curriculum. Okay? So when people think about differentiation and personalization, sometimes they go to the RTI process and pulling the student out. Differentiation and personalization has nothing to do with pulling a student out of the general education curriculum. Think about that. And while we have our esteemed colleagues from TDA with us, we have the opportunity to design. Remember, we stopped this process many years ago, about 8 years ago, because we're building buildings for building's sake and because OFCC wasn't ready for us. We stopped that process to go down the road of educational visioning, and you build a building designed around what you want to put in it. So when we talk about we talk about writing across the curriculum, and you've been to a couple of buildings where they've designed it so that that is really easy to do. Okay? You've seen it. North Ridgeville and North Olmsted. You've seen it. Keep that in mind as well as we go down to educational visioning. Because we can design a building that makes writing across the curriculum extremely easy to do.
Well,
all I
we
wanted
have
to
to
say.
have a curriculum that allows for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
Thank
guaranteed
you
viable
all for your
curriculum.
comments. I mean, we could continue on this vein for quite a while.
I'll
because,
stop there.
It's near and dear to all our hearts, but thank you again, Mr. Hutch and Mr. Gomez, for your leadership on this evening. Item 4, future agenda items.
I wanted to put on discussion of the levy cycle because we'll need to get moving in terms of that for next year. If we are to be on the ballot in May, we'll have to approve resolutions relatively quickly. So
That's correct.
I don't know. We're getting the 5-year forecast from Ms. Stoikley at the next meeting, and that's probably going to inform how we want to do that. So would you prefer to get that from Ms. Stoikley and then maybe at the next meeting talk about levy cycle? So first meeting in December. And you can prepare whatever you want.
I had intended to put that in your Friday packet
Okay.
this weekend, the timeline that we had discussed earlier, but I didn't want to go down the road of buzzkill tonight. It is our reality, though.
Where we're at.
It is our reality.
Other future agenda items? We'll move to committee reports. Alliance for School and Community Growth, Mrs. Moffett.
We are meeting next Tuesday.
Thank you. Athletics and Activity Council, Dr. Hall.
There has not been a meeting.
Board Policy, Ms. White, Mr. Gomez. Business Advisory Council, Ms. White and Dr. Hall.
We'll be meeting in November on the, I think it's the 23rd at 8.
That's correct. Monday, the 23rd at 8 a.m.
Financial Advisory Committee, Dr. Hall.
I believe I reported on our last meeting the last time we met.
Thank
Our
you.
next meeting is the 12th of November,
November 12th.
I
Thank you.
think. Yeah.
Foundation Alumni Association, Mr. Gomez.
We meet this coming Tuesday.
Legislative Liaison.
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Gomez.
as part of being your legislative liaison, I represented you at the OSBA Delegate Assembly last Thursday. We did approve a plank on equity, and specifically in regards to racial equity and socioeconomic equity. There's discussions of expanding that further, possibly next year. We also voted down something that would have said that if there's vouchers, then they have to be paid out of state funds. Enough of us felt that that was acknowledging acceptance of vouchers and just shouldn't be in there. Should just say that we don't think vouchers should exist, and that's it. And the last piece of that was they approved a new president-elect of our organization. I voted against Mr. Hurd because he is from the Cleveland Municipal School District. They are the only non-elected school board in our association. And if it was not for the Cleveland plan, we would not have the Youngstown plan, which is now also affecting East Cleveland and Lorraine as well. And I don't believe that as an organization, we should accept the fact that non-elected school boards exist. So I was one of 3 board members that voted against that, but I don't think it's right. So that's how I represented you there. As we know, we had an election yesterday in terms of our state legislature. It's a wash in the state Senate, and the Republicans picked up a few seats in the state House. But in good news, the State Board of Education, there were 5 seats up for election. 4 were contested. Of the 4 contested, the 3 of the people that won are strong advocates for public education. That'll be something different on the State Board of Education. And the 4th one, it's within recount range, so there's hope yet. And our school board member was elected to the state house. So the phenomenal news is that she will no longer be our State Board of Education member, and whoever the governor appoints cannot possibly do a worse job of representing us than she has, because she's just been an awful State Board of Education member. So I look forward to having someone new represent us and maybe actually represent us for once. And we will be going into the lame duck session. There is still hope that the Fair School Funding Plan will pass a lame duck session, and I think it's got a chance.
Mr. Gomez, on that point, the Fair Schools funding, there is a seminar that Christy will be attending Friday, probably. I signed up, but we have our ICS for equity training, and they're supposed to produce simulations for us this Friday.
Hope for the best there. Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Student Achievement Liaison, two quick things and a longer thing. The first quick thing, the district leadership team met this past Monday, December 2nd. 2 big agenda items. One was the integrated comprehensive systems for equity, building action plans developed by the BLTs in conjunction with their building principal are in progress. They've worked through now levels, modules 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. And coming up this Thursday will be the 3rd of the 3-day workshop presented by Dr. Furtura, and that'll provide some additional direction to the building leadership teams for designing their equity plans. The second part of the meeting was talking about our the overarching student achievement goal and its connection to our strategic plan and the connection to the CCIP, which is the Comprehensive Continuous Improvement Plan that takes all of our federal funds and works to identify learning outcomes and budgetary considerations on how we can be most impactful. The most exciting part about all this, and I'm throwing a lot of letters and this and that's around, is that these things are really starting to align, overlap, complement each other. And I think we're starting to see that, as Dr. Nichols always used the analogy, the arrows are aligned, the arrows are aligning. So it's exciting to see that a lot of these various initiatives are working in conjunction with each other. The other piece is student wellness and success. We met on Tuesday, November 3rd, and I mentioned to you at our last meeting that a strategic plan had been developed, which you all have a copy of in front of you, and outlining not only what the tasks were, but a timeline and a monitoring schedule, along with the responsibility factor. So a lot of the things we've been reading about in Schmoker with clarity, priority, accountability, and so on, I think are represented in this document. We're fortunate that tonight Mr. Lazar is here with us, so I have asked him to sort of walk us through quickly some of the highlights here. Some of you have asked about this, these funds, what this group is doing, how how it's impacting what's going on in our schools. And I think between this document and Mr. Lazar's conversation with us tonight, we ought to have a pretty good idea. Do you mind coming up? Thank you.
Thank you. President Schofield, ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for asking me to come up and talk about this. Very near and dear to my heart. So we could be here for a while, but I'll try to make it as brief as possible. A lot of information. The team consisting of President Schofield, Dr. Nichols, Director of Human Resources, Ellen McClure, as well as Christy, our treasurer, and our new addition of Holly Merkel, who is our K-12 coordinator of wellness and success, which, as you see in the budget, is a manifested position from the allocation of these dollars to the district. So she's joined us this year as well. It's about a year and a half in progress. This document has been a labor of love that we've created collaboratively to really outline exactly what President Schofield said, and has developed and morphed and really turned into our monthly agenda as well with the progress updates. So the electronic version even provides more in-depth information. You can see all the blue links, and a lot of the boxes have comments in them to try to dictate and determine exactly what we're doing, and provides links to everything from what we're doing with ICS and the specific deliverables that are associated with the days to our comprehensive counseling, which we've really merged, counseling plan, which we've merged into the social emotional development area. So I guess just to lay out, you have your macro tasks to the far left side. We've modeled the MTSS or RTI structure by having tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 supports, which for us educators, we're very familiar with. Tier 1 is a support for all students, and through the theme of ICS for equity, equitable delivery to all students. So every student across the district has access to those tier 1 supports. Tier 2 being driven through a process where only when tier 1 is not effective, attached to specific percentages, are we allowed to start to look at more intensive interventions for smaller groups of students, and then tier 3 are most significant. Then you'll see the micro tasks associated with those macro tasks, the individuals who are responsible, the timelines associated there within, and the status updates. And then we kind of update frequently with deliverables, like we just met on Tuesday. So we'll put notes in there and reminders so that we can include some of those tasks moving forward. I think it certainly, there's value to mention what those macro tasks are, what we've kind of looked at undergoing through this project. Also, you kind of see some of the littered red within here, which is indicative of we're behind schedule or haven't started in some of those areas. So you can see student wellness and success team, that's really the team that I talked about. ICS for equity, those are the driving supports behind what we're doing to ensure equitable access to high quality instruction across the district. And I work with Dr. Futura. Universal screener is, really, I can't give enough credit to Holly Merkel and her joining the team. We've got a phenomenal opportunity here to really capture student social emotional development. So that's underway right now. I think it starts at the high school tomorrow. This year, we've decided to screen grades 3, 5, and 9. I'm sorry, 3, 6, and 9. So third graders, the screener only goes down to the age of 11. So the screener is set up to where it's able to be taken by the parents of those students. So we're going to collect all this data. Holly's done a great job of motivating student involvement, ensuring that it's going to be implemented at the buildings, and that we have the data analysis. Along with that, we've created a data team, which is representative of school counselors, our school psychologists, administrators, as well as some representatives from outside organizations, child guidance and family development, as well as a professor from Akron University. So very blessed to have that taking place on a monthly basis, who will really kind of be a outside litmus test. We'll provide the data to our school psychologists and our school counselors for some of those core recommendations in regards to interventions. But in addition to that, the data team will really kind of bring some of those empirical based recommendations and make decisions about what interventions are taking place. So I'm just rambling on. You can stop me at any time. But I do want to do a little service to the social emotional development. So some of the things that we're seeing in addition to the next category down with attendance, you can see that's kind of red. Because through the proposal, we were requesting the addition of some school social workers to utilize with these funds. And the team has done a magnificent job. You know, I'm kind of shoot from the hip at times. The team's done a magnificent job of ensuring that before we make any moves in that direction, that we're really strategic about utilizing the staff that we have on hand, and that we understand the scope of what they're currently involved in, and that we're very strategic with their time before we engage in onboarding additional staff to absorb, just continue to absorb the hard work that we engage in, that we're very strategic about it. And then you see mental health, suicide, drug and alcohol prevention. Through that, there's actually some corrections to be done on there because we've got some good programming that is now going to be a tier 1 support for students in some of our secondary grades through a program provided by Community Health. So that'll be happening in our schools, and you can kind of see it, some of the things we anticipate expanding to moving forward. And then finally, a thought about also behavior, but also physiological health. So working towards being very systematic about the supports that we're providing to all students across the district with their physical health, communication with families that's going home and very strategic, and also supporting families with students that have more significant health. Questions?
So then, are we anticipating potentially onboarding those social workers in the second half of this school year based off of your budget?
That's a fantastic question. It depends who you ask, right?
It's a question I keep bugging Ms. Schofield about as well as our representative.
It's a
I'd say we
shameless
are
plea.
closer to that point now than we have been. And I think, and I'll just speak candidly, I think as this strategic plan has been refined and rethought and new elements added and other timelines adjusted, then I think needs are more apparent and specificity is much more apparent. And I think based on our last meeting, we're probably closer to understanding that role and getting ready to probably move in that direction fairly soon.
I'll take that as a yes.
And Mr. Lazar was able to identify an additional source of funding that may help contribute to the onboarding of social workers in the near future.
I'm just very passionate about this. I think it's the work I'm most excited about our district doing. Sorry, even more than buildings. I think this matters. And the more that we can break down barriers and meet, like Mrs. Dudone's highlighted, those basic needs that all people have and help people realize that these are basic needs that we all have, the more that we'll be able to catch these things in a tier 1 and not lose kids to tier 2. So I'm just.
And some of the data that we looked at in terms of at a foundational level when we drafted this was our youth risk behavior survey data. And if you haven't seen that, make sure that you're buying a box of tissues because it was taken in 2018 by our 7th through 12th grade students. I believe it was university up in Cleveland does it annually or once every few years with school districts that desire to participate. And the suicidal ideology along with, the individual identification and value that they put on themselves and introspective analysis is staggeringly sad. So one thing that the team has done a very good job with not necessarily speaking for myself because I often jump to trying to accomplish some of these things, is ensuring that we wait on the data. Right in December, we'll have some of the social emotional data back from our families, also from our students that are old enough to take it, and that will be another indicating factor that what we're trying to accomplish. And the nice thing is it's working in tandem with the work that we're doing through comprehensive school counseling. So we've really got it strategic where we're aligning universal tier 1 lessons for social emotional development in all of our buildings across the district, directly aligned with the CASEL and Ohio Department of Education social emotional learning standards. So, we've got some of that core foundational support in place this year. And I think we're going to see the results of what, our students are experiencing currently. And another shameless plug for Holly Merkel and Heidi Black, who's our behavioral specialist. I mean, they've worked phenomenally to put some supports in place for our staff as well. So that's also part of this. They did some wonderful lessons on, trauma-informed classes and self-care, which Dr. Seifert talked about in our first presentation. We anticipate through this process doing that very creatively, so not necessarily occupying people's time, but giving them resources and access to information, because we know if our staff and our faculty colleagues aren't well, it's very difficult for them to help them with this.
And to point out an additional crosswalk is our work with Denise Ward and her work with our students. So that's also crosswalked through not only the strategic plan, but our work, this strategic plan through the ICS for equity piece, what we're doing with the chamber, what we're doing with the city, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of, as Ms. Schofield pointed, the arrows are aligning. There's a lot of crosswalks that are taking place. The challenge now is to get people to be able to see it in that way. Still seeing a lot of separate pieces, and they aren't separate pieces. It's one piece. But our challenge now is to get people to see it that way. And they're not there yet.
Process. Mr. Lazar, thank you again for your time this evening.
Thank you.
I certainly appreciate your availability. Glad you were here to take care of this because the board members have been interested, and so I'm glad we finally were able to have you here with us to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. If you ever have any criticisms or questions at all, please reach out. I'm always happy to continue to improve the process.
We bug Karen and then she bugs you. We like to channel it through her since she's our rep.
You're welcome. All right, we're ready for comments, and we're going to begin tonight with Ms. White.
Just want to do a congratulations to Katarina Hutchinson and Michael Van Kuren, who were named our 2 students from our high school, 12th graders, make the grade. So kudos to them. I also secured a band ticket for the One More Time band on Friday night. And I was so happy because I got to go. And again, the band, we all talk about it, and they are wonderful. Even though I was freezing because I thought it was going to be indoors, it was outdoors. So I didn't dress accordingly, but I stayed almost to the very end and enjoyed it thoroughly. They're just wonderful. Those kids work so hard, and the band directors as well. So thank you to them. I just also want to be a great big hug, shout out, whatever, to our community for passing the renewal levy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. White. Next up, Mr. Gomez.
I had the opportunity to attend the Roberts PTO Zoom meeting, which was, I don't even remember, sometime within the last week. It's been a long week. And it was really phenomenal. I just really enjoy getting to hear about how our parents are so concerned about our staff, and they want to know anything that they can do, our PTOs and PTAs and HSL, anything they can do to make sure that our staff knows that they have the community support right now. And it's really heartwarming to hear that. I know that Silver Lake Home and School League is meeting on Zoom tomorrow, and Lincoln meets Monday. If any other board members want to know about that, I'll make sure to get you the Zoom link. Just send me an email. Just want to make sure we're all have access to the same events. And like most of us who didn't have the exclusive ticket to the band concert last Friday, the rest of us got to go to Lincoln and do their trunk or treat, and it was just an awesome event. And just again, a huge thanks to our community. Over 4,600 plus votes on the good side of approving our levy. Just very, very heartwarming to see the support of our community, one of our larger levies, even during these difficult times. So thank you to them.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Dr. Hall?
I want to echo Anthony's sentiments about the Lincoln PTA trunk or treat. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun, a lot of great costumes. I had participated with my kids in the city tour thing the previous weekend. So I was in the car with the kids getting the candy. This time I was handing out the candy. So I actually got to see all the costumes, which was awesome. And also, yeah, the levy passing is actually just fantastic news. So thank you so much to the community for that and to the great work of the levy committee as well. My tour of our district's buildings continues. I want to thank the administrators at the high school and Silver Lake, as well as the people from facilities for taking me inside Newberry and Cheney. It was really great to get inside those buildings and take a look around, continue trying to get the lay of the land. And then one other thing I wanted to mention, when I got on this board, I imposed upon myself a reading list, as if I didn't have enough reading to do. And in 2 different books that I read on that list, I have mentioned this idea of administration and school board having meals together in order to be able to interact sort of outside of the meetings, and how productive that can be. And I know Ms. Schofield said they did that in Kent when she was there. So that's just something I'd like to bring up as an idea, something we can maybe look at trying to do if possible. That's all.
You're buying.
Then never mind.
Thank you, Dr. Hall, and it's something we will discuss. Mrs. Moffett?
I was thrilled to find on YouTube a wonderful production of Happy Together by our Cuyahoga Falls a cappella choir and the Medina High School concert choir. So I'm hoping that others will be able to view it. Our director, Ian Crane, worked with Medina's director, Tyler Skidmore, to make a fantastic production of that particular number. So hopefully everyone can check it out. Also, a big thank you to our community. I'm hoping all of us will be so grateful to our community for supporting our renewal levy. After reading some comments on social media, I was a little bit apprehensive, but their overwhelming support from our community just warms the heart. So thank you again. And also, I wanted to thank our staff and our students and our families, because even though we've seen some kind of negative data tonight about how things may be working for some families or some students or some staff members, overwhelmingly, I think everyone is working so hard to make this try to work. It's something that we cannot change because the pandemic is real. The pandemic is going to affect our lives in so many different ways. And it's a difficult change for us to make. We're traditional people who like traditional classrooms and traditional school days, but that cannot be. And so we're doing our best to make these accommodations. And I want to thank everyone at all levels, because we're all working together as a team. So we're going to have hits, we're going to have misses, but everyone's work is deeply appreciated. So thank you so much. And also, I will say this, at the trunk or treat event at Lincoln, I was a senior board member who used my grabber, and it was so effective in passing out Halloween candy. I would like to suggest it to so many more people, because it was just an easy thing to grab that bag and put it right at the car. So I was practicing my social distancing as a senior citizen, but it was a thrill to be there with the kids and their families, because the kids were so appreciative, I think, and it was a sense of normalcy in an alternative way. So thank you to the Lincoln community for making that happen. And also one last moment of sadness, the Richardson event that was scheduled for the Thursday night prior to our trunk or treat at Lincoln had to be canceled due to the inclement weather. They were apprehensive about taking their electricity outdoors in all of the rain. I don't know what the problem was, but they said, no, thank you. We'd rather err on the side of caution. Who does that these days? But I'm so sorry it had to be postponed, and hopefully it will be rescheduled. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Moffett. It was great fun at the Lincoln Trunk or Treat. Dr. Hall came dressed as a school board member, complete with his badge, so it was pretty impressive.
Nice through my leg. Come on.
The best, I think, was Pikachu over here.
Oh,
That was pretty impressive. And Ms. White, while you were at the concert, we had a good time handing out the candy. So thanks to Lincoln for having us out. We had a good time. I want to add my thanks to our community members for their support of our levy renewal. We love the support that you have given us, and we don't take it lightly. We want to do our best work on behalf of you and your children. So thank you. Thanks to the levy committee, the work that they did throughout the course of this campaign. And then just as an aside, I'd like to also congratulate the Cuyahoga Falls Public Library for their successful passage of their levy. They're a great partner with us too. And we're happy that their funding was also secured. So on that note, I think we're ready for executive session. Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, it is hereby moved that the board adjourn to executive session for the purpose of considering the employment of an employee or official of the school district. Second, please. Ms. White. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mrs. Moffett,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez, aye, Ms. Schofield.
Aye.
Aye. It's 8:38 p.m.